I think that there's a lot of hidden gems in Washington, D.C., this being one of them.
Warning, D.C. is a town full of monuments, but some of them hide in plain sight. This week's target, Braddock's Rock in Foggy Bottom, the impossible-to-find, often forgotten landmark that provided the building block for some of our nation's capital's most famous buildings, though I won't tell you which ones just yet. Located in a reasonably safe spot on the access ramp to the Teddy Roosevelt Bridge, some claim,
I think it may well be DC's most obscure monument.
We'll see about that. To get to and from Braddock's Rock, though, I had to play a very lifelike game of Frogger.
All right, go for it, go for it, go for it. Go, 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 go.
And deal with bewildered security at the Center for Peace across the street.
Do you ever see anybody visit Braddock's Rock, the monument?
No, I never do.
What we've got here is a rock, the bottom of a well, covered by a grate, in the middle of a highway, that honors an event that probably never happened.
In other words, right up my alley. So let's start at the beginning in the 1700s when this area of D.C. looked a lot different.
This was actually along the Potomac River. It's a quarter mile to the river now, but the river was right here.
By the way, that's Frank Leone, the co-chair of the Foggy Bottom Association History Project and our expert for the day. He says that while currently Braddock's Rock is surrounded by the Roosevelt Bridge, Kennedy Center, Washington and Lincoln Memorials, and Constitution Avenue, this whole swath was once marshland.
So this area was all surrounded by water, and this rock was very, very large.
Our story really starts when British General Edward Braddock, famous for dying in battle and having a DMV road with lots of traffic named after him here today, landed in April of 1755.
He takes two boats over, and he lands here on Braddock's Rock with his aide-de-camp, George Washington, who was a 23-year-old militia colonel in the Virginia militia.
Braddock's ships were sent as an envoy from the British Crown with troops to fight in the French and Indian War, that struggle being the major conflict that would see none other than America's dad, George Washington, rise to fame as an officer in Braddock's army.
George Washington, was a surveyor, and he did survey this area. Some say that's what inspired him to choose Washington, D.C. as the nation's capital, was his experience here.
What a small world that Washington and Braddock would converge at this rock of all places back in the day. Almost too good to be true. Well,
most historians think that that actually is not what happened. He more than likely landed closer to Georgetown. But it's been heavily disputed, especially in the 1890s. They had real arguments about this issue.
What was eating at me the whole time I was learning about Braddock's Rock was how on earth could anyone spot this on the shoreline, know to make landfall, all while being miles away sailing in the ocean?
Oh, how big at its peak was this rock?
It's hard to say, really big.
Today, the only way to see the small slab that remains of Braddock's Rock would be to rip off the sealed grate, climb 16 feet down a well ladder, and possibly submerge your head in water. But Frank says this landmark was actually so gigantic in its early days that it was nicknamed the Key of Keys because of how useful it was in surveying. So why is there almost nothing left now?
What happened was they needed stone to build buildings in Washington, like the Capitol.
And it wasn't just the Capitol, they needed stones for the White House too, so they blew up this massive stone with dynamite, and the rest is history.
I think that's a really interesting thing that civilization does, tears down one to build up another one.
So you really can't claim you've been to all the best monuments in D.C. until you brave the streets to see this OG.
Part of history, and we didn't know about it.
When you learn about what remains of Braddock's Rock, and it makes you dig back deeper into history and learn what are the other things that aren't really clear to the eye.
They're going towards the Lincoln. They have no idea what they're missing.
Checking off yet another obscure monument on this journey in the district, I'm Matt Kaufax.
A lot of people just drive by it, but it's worth a closer look.
We're bringing it back.
WTOP News.